Hey there! So, if you've ever found yourself just staring at a bunch of different toroid cores, completely lost on which one to pick for your project, you are definitely in the right place. Choosing the right core can feel a bit like black magic, but today we're going to demystify it and turn that art into a science. All right, let's just jump right into the big question, because if you get this wrong, you are signing up for a world of pain and frustration. But if you get it right, oh, your project is going to run beautifully. So how do we make sure we nail it every single time? It's a super common assumption, right? You look at these things and think, well, bigger has to be better. It just feels intuitive that a larger core can handle more power. But as we're about to find out, the relationship is way more complicated than just its physical size. Ah, yes, the classic sign that you've made the wrong choice. You build your circuit, you fire it up, and after a little while, that core starts getting really, really hot. Now, that's not just random bad luck. That heat is physics screaming at you that you've misunderstood something critical, specifically magnetic flux. You can just think of flux as the density of the magnetic field packed inside that core. And this is probably the most frustrating problem of them all. You have a part that fails, so you replace it with another one that has the exact same part number on it, and it fails again, sometimes even faster. That's not a coincidence. It's a huge clue that the specs on the datasheet are not telling you the whole story. So to solve these puzzles, we have to look past the one rule of thumb that everybody knows and loves for inductors, the n-squared law. You've probably used this shortcut a million times. Inductance is proportional to the number of turns squared. And you know what? For a quick and dirty estimate, it's okay. If you double the turns, you get roughly 4 times the inductance. But relying on this is like trying to navigate a city with a world map. It's a simplification that completely hides the two things that really matter: the core's physical shape and its magnetic material. So let's pull back the curtain and look at the two formulas that are the real keys to understanding what's actually happening inside that little magnetic donut. Okay, first up, the full-blown formula for inductance. Now, don't worry, don't let the math scare you off. The key takeaway here isn't the numbers, it's what they represent. Inductance isn't just about n squared. It's also driven by mu, which is the material's permeability, basically how happy it is to have a magnetic field inside it. And it's also about the core's geometry. A sub e is its cross-sectional area, and L sub m is the path length around the middle. Bottom line, the material and the shape are a huge deal. And this simple chart shows you something that's honestly kind of mind-blowing. Look at this. We start with a tiny 1/2-inch core and go all the way up to a beefy 5-inch one. That is a massive jump in physical size and volume. But now look at the inductance. It only goes from 0.5 microhenry to 2.8. That's it. It's less than a 6-fold increase. So right away, we can see bigger size does not equal proportionally bigger inductance. Not even close. And here it is. This is the big reveal. This is where the core size has a truly gigantic effect. While our inductance barely budged, changing by less than 6x, the core's ability to handle magnetic flux changed by more than 45 times. This is the key insight. If you're trying to handle more power, you're not in an inductance managing business. You're in a flux managing business. And that is the secret to keeping things cool. Which, of course, brings us to our second key formula, the one for flux. Now, look closely at what's in here. We've got voltage, the core's area, frequency, and the number of turns, n. But notice the most important part. N is not squared here. This is huge. It means flux is directly related to the voltage per turn. If you want to control heat, you have to control flux, and this formula is your roadmap. Okay, enough with the theory. Theory is great, but let's make this real. Let's walk through an actual design challenge to see how these two formulas can save us from a total meltdown. All right, here's our mission. We need a 10 microhenry coil that can handle 400 volts, and we have to keep the flux below 100 Gauss. So our first attempt with a standard T130 core, it gets way too hot. The flux is just too high. Okay, what about stacking? We could stack 4 of them. It works, but it's big and clunky. And notice the catch-22. To keep our inductance at 10 microhenries, we actually have to reduce the number of turns, which is the exact opposite of what we want to do to lower the flux. But now, look at strategy 2. We grab a single, smaller core made of a different material, one with a lower permeability. This is the genius move. It lets us use more turns to get that same inductance. And as our flux formula showed us, more turns means lower flux. It's the elegant solution. So we figured out the physics of picking the right core. We should be all set, right? Well, hold on. There's another huge trap waiting for us, because the real world is a whole lot messier than the datasheet would have you believe. You really have to think of a datasheet as a starting point. not a guarantee. For instance, that permeability number, the most important property of the core, it can vary right out of the box. It also changes with flux and temperature. On top of that, the exact recipe for the core material is a trade secret. So two parts with the same number from different companies are not the same part. And here's the really dangerous one. If you run them too hot, they can permanently change, increasing their losses over time and setting you up for failure. And just to put a hard number on that variability, some common powdered iron cores have a permeability tolerance of plus or minus 12%. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but think about it. You could grab two identical-looking cores from the same bag, and one could be 12% high, while the other is 12% low. That's a potential difference of almost 25% between them. That is a massive variable to have in any circuit you're trying to build with precision. And this right here, this is the stuff of nightmares. With powdered iron cores, if you let them get too hot for too long, a process called aging kicks in. The resin that holds all the little iron particles together starts to break down, and the core's losses can literally increase by 10 times. This is what leads to thermal runaway. More heat creates more loss, which creates even more heat. It's a vicious cycle that ends in a puff of smoke. So let's wrap all of this up with a real-world horror story that pulls together everything we've just talked about. A cautionary tale of good cores gone bad. So picture this. The scene of the crime is a high-power amplifier. The victims are two cores with the exact same part number, FT114-61, but they came from two different manufacturers. Now, both of them passed all the standard quality control tests at low frequencies. On paper, they should have performed identically, but, well, they didn't. When they were tested under the amplifier's real operating conditions, high frequency and high impedance, the difference was just staggering. The good core was fine, dissipating about 1 watt of power. The so-called bad core was dissipating 11 watts. That's 11 times more heat coming from a part that was supposed to be exactly the same. No wonder things were failing. So what was the culprit? Well, the manufacturer of that failing core insisted their part was perfectly fine. And you know what? According to their own tests, it was. Their quality control was done at 100 kilohertz, but the amplifier was running way up in the high frequency range, close to 30 megahertz. The part met its spec, but the spec was completely wrong for the application. It was never tested for the job it was actually being asked to do. And that really brings us to the crucial takeaway from all of this. Datasheets, part numbers, specs, they're just the beginning of the story. They are a starting point, not the finish line. The only way you can ever know for sure how a component is going to behave is to test it under the exact conditions it's going to see in your circuit. So the next time you pick up a core, you've got to ask yourself, do I really know what's inside this thing?